Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. Thanks for tuning in. Just a quick video today looking at this LG Flatron LCD monitor, model number 782LE. I've had this for a couple of years now. It's a 17-inch monitor. It's one of the older ones. This one dates back to 2002, so it's getting on a bit now. It's actually quite hard to find a beige LCD monitor these days. They all tend to be black or grey. This one unfortunately is developed a fault. At first I noticed a weird smell coming from it, which I thought might be some bad capacitors, because it did smell kind of acrid. And then when I was using it the other day, smoke started coming out of it. It was still actually working with the smoke coming out, but obviously I quickly unplugged it. And I thought, well, that's the end of that. But then I thought to myself, well, you know what, let's have a quick look inside this thing and see what's actually gone wrong with it. But before we do that, I thought we'd have a quick look at the specifications of this thing and see just how bad things were back then, with this being 23 years old now. So the contrast ratio, as you would expect, is very low on this. It's just 400:1. Brightness measures at 200 candela per square metre, which again is very low, with a field of view of horizontal 150 degrees, vertical 140. We've certainly moved on a long way since then, haven't we? Maximum screen resolution on this is 1280 by 1024 at a 5:4 aspect ratio, and as I mentioned before, the size is 17 inches. Inputs, you've got one VGA D sub and one DVI port. There's also a blanked out area there for a audio input. I guess they must have done a version of this that had speakers, which may explain those two screw holes that are split at the bottom there on the back of the case. Perhaps this was for the speaker dock to attach to. This monitor has its own built-in power supply, so there's no need for one of those laptop chargers you get with some of the other monitors with a DC barrel plug. This just uses a 3-pin AC connecting cord. And there's also a handy 2-port USB hub built into the base to gain you some USB sockets. Power consumption whilst operating is 55 watts, so that's quite high, and standby 3 watts. And the weight of this thing is just over 7 kilos, and it certainly fills it too. So let's open this thing up, shall we, and have a look inside. On the back there I can see 4 screws, and there's also a cover here that you need to remove to be able to get to the stand screws. This needs to be removed in order to get the foot off at the back, so the back cover can be removed. It was actually quite hard to get into, and there's a lot of clips around the case as well, especially at the top. And here we are presented with a metal shielding all over this thing, and this is probably where all the weight is. Once you remove that back shielding, you're then presented with the display board and the power supply. Upon further inspection, the power supply looks absolutely fine, no leaking capacitors. But then as I looked a little bit further, I could see the problem. As you can see on the inverter board there, one of the sockets is actually burnt. This must have been due to a poor connection. So it looks like this is going to be an easy fix. Ironically, I've recently got rid of some monitors, and there would have been one of these plugs and sockets on one of those monitors I could have used here. So I don't actually have a spare one. So what I'm going to do for now, until I get another socket and plug, I'm just going to solder the cables directly to the board, and then I'll cover them up with some Kapton tape to protect it against being touched. Because these inverter boards convert the DC power to AC, which obviously powers the backlight of the actual LCD panel itself. And as you can see here, it says caution high voltage. I'm not sure just how many volts are coming out of this thing, but I certainly wouldn't want to find out by getting a shock. And here you are, this is with the cable soldered directly to the board after removing the plug. I think this is quite a safe way to do this. I can't see there being any problems. And personally, I think this is a better way of connecting it, because there's no room for error with a bad connection. Obviously, this is not a how-to video. I'm not saying this is the right way to do this. This is just me doing it just to keep this monitor going, and it may not be the best way going forward. And here's some Kapton tape there covering up what I've done to protect it from being shorted out onto anything. So now it's just a case of putting this back together and giving it a test, and see if it still works. Turns out that I didn't actually need to remove those 2 top screws, so I have to carefully put these 2 brackets back in place, and then lower the screen back into its casing, its bezel, and then screw them in. This was basically just held with clips at the top, so if you're going to take the same monitor apart, it's just the bottom 2 screws that you need to release. So here it is all back together. I'm pleased to say the monitor is still working okay. And here is the monitor up and running. It's a little bit of gameplay I did here on a previous video to demonstrate this Dell-wise PC. As you can see, it's still pretty good, still usable. Unfortunately, it does have that pink line going down the right hand side there. These old LCD monitors all seem to go this way. I've got a couple of Sony digital photo frames that are doing the same thing. I think the cable connection is delaminating where it connects to the monitor itself. I think there is a way of actually fixing this, but I've never attempted it yet. Maybe we'll do that in a future video. Ironically, I've got CRT screens that are even older than this screen, and they're still working just fine. The worst thing that really happens to those is the flyback transformer goes, or capacitors start failing. Like I said, these LCD screens just don't seem to last as long. Well, I'm glad I was able to repair this monitor, because the first thing I thought was it was going to be bin fodder. I was going to obviously end up taking it to e-waste. But I'm really glad I've managed to get it working again. Or repair it, should I say, because it was actually still working, although I don't know how long it would have lasted. Like I mentioned before, these beige LCD screens are becoming quite hard to get hold of. And this is actually the only one I have left now. Well, I shall leave you with a couple of minutes of footage here of gameplay. If you're not bothered about that, then obviously feel free not to watch it. But if you do, carry on watching. So with that in mind, I guess that just leaves me to say, as always, thanks for watching. And until the next video, I'll be seeing you.
If we raise 300 million, the statue will rotate so I can look over this great city and cast an evil eye on degenerates. And when the imminent nuclear strike occurs, those who put faith into action with sufficiently generous contributions will join me inside the Pastor Richard Salvation 8669 Save Me. Knights of the Road, here's your stallion.